Man, if you're gonna watch this podcast, you're gonna listen, you're gonna do whatever with it, you are as pathetic a person as I am. This is a bad UVA sports podcast we're gonna have coming up here. Chris Graham, Augusta Repress. Man, there's not a lot of good stuff to talk about. Oh dear goodness. Look, I don't know where to start, so we'll just start with the most recent, but there's a lot of recent. Um, start with football. Uh, how bad have things gotten, really? So we're, sitting in the press box. I say we, Scott German and I. There's a few other folks around uh, with us that we regularly chat with. Jerry Radcliffe, cast of characters, and we're the second half was just not a lot to actually cover. I mean, there wasn't a lot to actually watch. Um, and have to analyze. So, couple minutes to go in the game. It's 26 nothing still. No, it's 26-7. Yeah, UVA had scored with I guess it was about 4 minutes ago, right? That touchdown pass, the reminiscent of the catch, except that it was 26 nothing and you were losing when you caught it. But I mean, it was good, great throw by Calandre. He ran around for a while and then leaping catch by Malachi Fields. Great photo for us for AFP by Mike Ingles, the former guy, longtime guy, founder of the Saber from way back in the day. Has been doing great photography work for us the last couple seasons. Um, showing how high Fields was to make that catch. But it's 26-7, a couple minutes to go. And Scott observes from our perch in the press box. It's an open air press box where, up at the top of the first section in Scott Stadium. Uh, and there's two young ladies. I stay after games. We both stay after games, but I stay after games in the press box and work on my first pregame story. Scott usually goes down into the media room for the postgame press conferences, and uh, so when I'm sitting up there, I'm sitting beside the feet away from the radio crew, UVA radio crew, who's doing the postgame press conference from up there, and running everything through the radio. And we're watching like when everybody's left the stadium, there's these cleaning crews, kids, and I say kids, the UVA, it looks like UVA students who are fanned out across the stadium. They pick up programs, they pick up, the cups and popcorn buckets and all that kind of stuff. Um, and make a few extra bucks. Well, 2 minutes to go, 2:33 to go in the game. In fact, there was a timeout. There were already crews working below us. That's how emptied out the stadium was. Never seen this before. We've been in the stadium for home games where, at the end of blowout losses, we've, seen the crowd thinned out to a point where there's almost nobody there. But I've never seen the cleaning crew already at work before the game's over. That's how bad things have gotten. They had to have had a meeting about this to say, you know what, it's okay. If it's blowout and they're gone, go ahead and get to work and get out of there early. So um, yeah, I wanted to be mad after Rhett Lashley, the head coach at SMU, had his guys throw a touchdown pass with a minute 42 to go, to make it 33-7. They didn't need style points. The SMU's fate is in its hands right now. The win over Virginia yesterday puts SMU into the ACC title game. If the Mustangs win that game, they're in the playoff. If they don't, they're probably not. The way the ACC is not the SEC. We're not going to get a three-loss team. And of course, SMU, if they lose a game, they'd be a two-loss team. But we're not going to get a three-loss Alabama team into the college football playoff from the ACC. We're not going to get a two-loss team into the playoff. We're going to have SMU play Miami. They're both going to have one loss in Charlotte. And then whoever loses that game is not going to be in the playoff. That's just the reality here. So SMU doesn't need style points. Rhett Lashley throwing the ball to make it 33-7 instead of 26-7 with 142 to go. Honestly, kind of peed me off. Okay. Um, and I'm keeping that nice because I want to be able to monetize this on YouTube. Um, but I don't know what, and Scott took a picture of the cleaning crews as well. So just to prove it, we didn't have anybody say, no, you made it up. No, no, didn't make it up. It's actually very true, unfortunately. I don't know which one should pee me off more. Um, SMU's throwing touchdown passes in the final 2 minutes to run up the score, and it's the second time that's happened in the last few weeks. Dabo Swinney did that down at Clemson. Same situation for Clemson. Clemson's 9-2. If something happens and Miami loses this coming weekend, then Clemson's in the ACC title game. Outside shot of that happening. He didn't need style points. Same situation. Clemson, if they get to Charlotte and they win, they're in the playoff. If they don't, they're not going to be in the playoff. So, um, other things that weren't good about this, the announced attendance was 36,305. The count from the ushers, who you chat with to find out what the real situation is, said the actual count at the end of the first half was in the range of 23,000. Um, Maybe a couple thousand of those left by the time the game was over. For reference, the capacity at Scott Stadium is 61.5. The stadium once had 64,907 for a game. That was the 2008 season opener with a top 10 Southern Cal team. Mark Sanchez was a quarterback. It was a really good team. Um, as far as this game went, it was it. I still wanted to believe, based on the head-to-heads, that these two teams were somewhat equal. They had three head-to-heads, and Virginia was 2-1 against the head-to-heads. That's Louisville. Virginia lost to Louisville by 4 points. SMU had beaten Louisville by 7 points. Pitt. Now, SMU blew out Pitt. Virginia won at Pitt, so there's something there. And then the other. I had this down. Boston College, and both teams won by 10. And actually, SMU had to tack on another late touchdown when they didn't need it to make it a 10-point win. That was just last week. So, and Virginia was never in this one. It was 7-0 early. Virginia actually, I mean, early second quarter, Virginia had a 4th and 1 at the SMU 19. Called timeout to set up a play. Ran the play. Kobe Pace gained 5 yards, first down. Except that there's a flag on the field. Too many guys in the huddle. And after the game, Tony Elliott explained that they had discussed a couple of plays to run. The one assistant coach who's responsible for our personnel, obviously assistant coaches are responsible for the personnel groups, uh, thought that they were going to run a different play and left guys out there that shouldn't have been in the huddle for the play that was eventually decided upon. And there were just too many guys in the huddle. It's basic stuff. Coaching This coaching regime is 32. This is their 43rd game together, and they're not getting that kind of stuff right. That's the 11th game this season, and you can't get that basic stuff right. So you take the 5-yard penalty, takes away the first down, forces a field goal kick. Field goal's no good. SMU drives 76 yards in 9 plays. It's 14-0. It felt like already the game was over, just like last week when Notre Dame, similar situation. Virginia fumbles the ball down 7-0 midway through the second quarter. Kobe Pace fumbled on a really nice run at the end of the run. Ball squirts out. Notre Dame goes 88 yards on 9 plays, makes it 14-0, and it felt like the way the offense was going, the game was over. We'll talk more about the offense in a second. Actually, not a second. It'll be a few minutes away from where we are now, but. Uh, yeah, then it was 17-0 at the break. It was 20. The defense kept Virginia in this game. It was 20-0. The defense held SMU to a field goal on a drive in the third quarter. Forced a couple turnovers in plus territory. The offense couldn't convert the first one. Finally converted the second one, but it was way too late. And this game just got away. Officially, Anthony Colandre, 18 of 27 through the air, 108 yards. That's 6 yards per completion, 4 yards per attempt. Those are just horrible numbers. The 18 of 27 is fine, but again, we'll go into a lot more detail a little later in this podcast as to why he's 18 for 27. Very conservative game plan. It seemed like the focus was, hey, let's just not turn the ball over. No matter what else happens, let's just not turn the ball over. Um, it's how bad it's gotten. The moral victory of not turning the ball over. Um, let's talk about. I'm going to skip ahead. I talked about this. I'm going to go to why the numbers were what they were, and then I'll talk about the next thing in a second, which involves quarterback and situation and stuff there. So yeah, I talked about the moral victory of not turning the ball over. Uh, it seemed like the reason, Virginia had 100, what was it, 193 yards of offense in this game. Uh, and just never really moved. I mean, the one scoring drive was a short field, 9-play, 27-yard drive scored on 4th and goal from the 3. Um, it felt like that the game plan from Des Kitchings was very simple. After Anthony Colandre threw 3 interceptions last week against Notre Dame, got lifted at halftime for Tony Muskett. The idea from Kitchings was just don't turn the ball over. And then there was coaching emphasis that was apparently we can see from the results way overemphasized. Don't turn the ball over. And the play calling then within that. I mean, all three of those things were bad. The game plan, the coaching given to the quarterback, and the play calling. Calandry, I mentioned, attempted 27 passes, completed 18 in this game. The way you go 18 for 27 and only get 108 yards on those is everything was short stuff. And I say everything, I'm not entirely exaggerating. 10 pass attempts of the 27 were behind the line of scrimmage. Um, Pro Football Focus gives you average depth of throw, which is a really neat stat. The average depth on those throws, those 10 throws, was 2.3 yards behind the line of scrimmage. Nine pass attempts then that were 0 to 9 yards downfield. Basically, the way Pro Football Focus breaks it down is behind the line of scrimmage, 0 to 9, 10, 19, 20 plus. Now, on those 0 to 9 yard downfields, the average depth was 3.4 yards. So I mean, it wasn't even the 0 to 9. It could have been 0 to 3.5, and you would have encompassed it all. On those 19 total passes, Calandry was 15 of 19 for 77 yards, 4.1 yards per attempt, 5.1 yards per completion. Just dink and dunk stuff. No turnovers. You're not going, there's no risk on those throws, or almost no risk on those throws. Um, Problem being, Calandria only completed three passes that went more than 10 yards through the air. They were all to Malachi Fields. Um, 31 yards on those three passes, 10.3 yards per attempt. The average depth of the throw was 12.7 yards. So Malachi lost a couple of yards at least on one of those catches after catching the ball. He ran backwards, and tried to reestablish and lost yardage, I guess, for that to be the case. Nothing completed beyond 12.7 yards down the field, I guess. I mean, because again, they didn't gain a lot of yards there. Certainly, three attempts beyond 20 yards, nothing completed there. Now, the game plan was obvious. When you look at these numbers, it makes it very obvious. The game plan was to minimize the exposure to turnovers. Um, Coming into the SMU game now, the last three games for Calandria before that, he had thrown seven interceptions and 73 passes, one every 10.4 or 10.5 passes. Um, the 220 passes in the seven games before that, only four INTs, so one every 55 passes. So from one every 55 to one every 10, obviously the mantra, the edict from Tony Elliott to Des Kitchings and then down to Anthony Calandria, no more INTs. The problem with the emphasis on not having a lot of risk there, to keeping things very simple, very secure, is that when you're not attacking downfield, and they were not attacking downfield, the defense, SMU in this case, is going to be able to hover more defenders near the line of scrimmage, and that's going to make it harder to run. They're going to plug the gaps at the line of scrimmage. They're going to have the safeties cheating down into the box. They're going to have the cornerbacks crunched in close by because they know they're not going to get beat downfield. Um, and when you look at the rushing numbers, 140 yards on 140 sack adjusted running yards. I'll be careful to say that. There were nine sacks, 69 yards lost on those nine sacks on 30 attempts. So 140 yards, 30 attempts. But when you, let's say, factor out scrambles, Calandria running for his life had nine scrambles, gained 64 yards on those scrambles. That means the running backs got 76 yards on 21 attempts, 3.6 yards an attempt. Pretty low. I mean, pretty average, low end of the average scale. Uh, and then on the running for his life thing, again, I mentioned nine sacks. So nine sacks, nine scrambles for Calandry in this. And when you look at the pressure numbers, and I like doing this, this really gives you some insight. And I think it's going to give you a different insight than you thought. Because when you're watching yesterday in the stadium or on TV, you're seeing all these sacks, and you're thinking, the offensive line was a sieve. Um, he was pressured, Calandry was, on 24 of his 45 pass dropbacks. On those 24 pressure snaps, when and the pressure, is a hit, it's throwing early and it's sacks and it's scrambles. Um, Only seven pass attempts on those 24 pressure snaps. That's absurd. When you look inside those numbers, then five of the sacks came when SMU defensively sent one or more extra pass rushers, basically, blitzing, basically. So, you have your four down linemen, send a fifth guy. That's a um, extra pass rusher. You can sometimes send six, but whatever the case may be. So five of the sacks came on 14 dropbacks for Calandria, on which the SMU defense sent at least one extra pass rusher. The other four came with four-man pressure on 31 pass dropbacks. Now, for more look at that, let's see. SMU was able to get pressure on Calandria on 15 of his 31 pass dropbacks overall, with four-man pressure, that is. That's a 48.4% rate. Before the game yesterday, the previous 10 games of the season, the four-man pressure rate was 31.6% against the UVA pass blocking scheme. So obviously close to a 20% increase in the amount of pressure on four-man dropbacks. I say all that to say I'm wondering here if it was so much the pressure of the SMU defense, those four down linemen, to be able to get pressure as relatively easily as they did, or if it was Kalangri feeling pressure before it was there, taking off running before it was even necessarily pressure, and he kind of created his own pressure. And the eye test, the numbers suggest to me that's the case, and the eye test suggests even more. I mean, what we saw tells us even more. So it's actually 173 yards. Sorry, I got that wrong earlier in the discussion here. I'm not 193. I'm being generous. Um, And that's it's so very conservative game plan, very conservative play calling. You had a quarterback who obviously had been given coaching to don't take any chances, don't throw the ball anywhere near a tight window, take off running if you need to at the first glance, and no adjustments were made during the game either. That's it adds up. It makes me think. I mean, I haven't put this together into one cohesive writing piece yet, but it makes you think that, the pressure I was putting on editorially from Augusta Free Press last week, onto Coach Tony Elliott and his staff to consider a change at quarterback wasn't so much, I got some negative emails on that before the game and after the game yesterday, which is fine. But it wasn't so much I don't like Anthony Calandri and I like Tony Muskett better. It's the recognition that when your quarterback, like Calandria, has been under fire like he has been the last few weeks, both, more pressure from defenses, and then he's not responding well to the pressure with all those INTs in that 3 week stretch, that maybe you need to make a change just to get a fresh set of eyes in the form of Tony Muskett onto the situation. And then you can also you can open up your game plan a little bit, open up your play calling a little bit. So, I mean, I think obviously what we saw was that was probably right. There was no way that offensive game plan was going to score enough points to beat SMU yesterday. Let's just be blunt about that. There's no way that throwing, dinking and dunking the ball, 10 passes behind the line of scrimmage, another 9 passes 3 yards downfield are going to keep the SMU defense out of the running lanes to allow you to run the ball enough. 7 points was about what you would expect out of that game plan yesterday. And you could not expect the UVA defense to hold SMU to six. So therefore, they went into the game with the game plan that they were going to lose the game. I mean, unless you create a bunch of turnovers, et cetera, they were going to lose the game with that game plan. And that's, that itself necessitates a change of quarterback. I say all that to say Tony Elliott doesn't give a crap about what I say of who he starts the quarterback. He made that clear in his post-game presser. Here's a quote. Everybody's got an opinion. They got an answer. Don't necessarily have all the details in front of them. And quarterback-wise, everybody wants to go for the backup quarterback, but I've got to be fair. He was very defensive as far as that goes post-game. I mean, all the numbers I gave you earlier. But let's be fair here. It's not going to work. The game plan is not going to work to be more effective than it was yesterday. 7 points is about what you'd expect out of that. But that's me. I'm a member of the unwashed masses. I don't know everything Tony Elliott knows. I don't even play Madden. I'm not a video game guy, so I'm not somebody who thinks he's an expert because I throw for 1,000 yards a game playing some stupid video game. It was interesting. I wasn't in the room for it, but I watched it. I've read the transcript of the press conference a few times because I like to do that. I let it, the extra reads lets things sink in. Elliott was really he was defending Calandria, but I'm thinking more now he was defending himself in his decision. Uh, here's more from Coach Elliott. Everyone's going to talk about the quarterback situation, but when you've got 9 sacks, you're not protecting the quarterback. I threw in just earlier in this podcast a different thought that maybe your quarterback was running himself into trouble there. He's getting to the top of his drop. It wasn't just the offensive line, the running backs. We got some good young running backs in there who just were turning guys loose. I mean, part of that was, yeah, there were the top two running backs were hurt. Xavier Brown he's out for the season, broken collarbone. Kobe Pace, not sure if he's going to be able to be around for the Virginia Tech game, but he hurt his knee during the game and was not able to go back out. So that brought Noah Vaughn in, the third string running back. And running backs don't just run the ball. They don't just catch the ball in the backfield. They're important parts of the pass blocking scheme as well on a lot of plays. Um, so I mean, yeah, on paper that's an issue, but uh, you know, it's one of those things where um, he's struggling. They game plan to water it down to take away the possible turnovers and um, I don't know going into Virginia Tech. I mean, obviously this I'm recording this on Sunday night. This is a day where, the guys are getting medical treatments and everybody needs it at this time of season, whether it's an injury or just bruises from yesterday. And Anthony Calandri is going to be among the most bruised guys in college football after yesterday. But, tomorrow, and also, so the coaching staff then is working on game plan and they're thinking through things. There was no indication after what Coach Elliott was saying after the game yesterday that he's thinking about any kind of a change at quarterback for Virginia Tech. Um, and he did last week after the Notre Dame loss say, "Yeah, I'm going to go in and we're going to, evaluate these two guys." He split the reps between Musket and Calandria, and didn't make the ultimate decision until Friday. He said this after the game yesterday. But he didn't make the change. You make the change, or make the call on who he was going to go with until Friday. Um, just thinking this through here. It's a tough situation. I get it. Uh, it seems like if this is the call being made is to stick with Calandria, it's maybe related to the fact that I mean it's obvious that Musket is a grad senior, fifth year guy, not can't come back next year. And Calandria is a sophomore, will be a junior next year, can be back next year. And they want to keep the guy they think's the quarterback of the future. I just will say I'm not sure about the quarterback of the future status for Anthony Calandri as far as that goes. But in any case, Virginia does play Virginia Tech on Saturday night. Man, I mean, the ACC and ESPN they decided last week to make this Virginia Tech game the primetime game on ACC Network. So it's 8 o'clock kickoff Saturday night. It's going to be between two, 5, and 6 teams trying to fight their way into a very cold weather bowl. If that's the best we got, there's a reason ACC isn't making so much money from its ACC network. There's a reason we're not the SEC or Big Ten. But yeah, we'll get you ready for that game. This is always the weird week. It's always the week of Thanksgiving, so it makes it weird enough. From a work standpoint. But the regular press conferences, everything else, we'll try to get our injury report in, get a look at the matchup, and but yeah, I'm not expecting any change, and I'm going to use the word unfortunately with that. I would like to see, because ultimately this is a chance to win a game and go to a bowl. And I'm not, even if Anthony Calandri is the quarterback of the future, I don't think he's the quarterback of the present right now. And I'm not saying Tony Muskett is, but he's not shell shocked right now. He's not someone you have to game plan to not make mistakes and make your offense uh, one dimensional. Because throwing the ball 19 of your 27 pass attempts being basically at the line of scrimmage. I mean, either 2.3 yards behind the line of scrimmage or 3.4 yards in front of the line of scrimmage. That's the line of scrimmage. Those are long handoffs. They're not going to gain a lot of yards. They didn't yesterday. 4.1 yards per attempt on those 19 passes, 3.6 yards per attempt on your conventional runs. Your best plays were scrambles when the quarterback's running for his life. That's not an offense you build around. That's sandlot football. That's not going to be a game plan that's going to work next week. Maybe let's just say for what it is. So, in addition to being an analyst, a journalist, a entrepreneur, I'm a UVA alum, and I want to win this game. And my wife's a Virginia Tech alum, and I want her to lose this game. And I don't know that, I can't guarantee that Tony Musk is starting the game is going to, be the difference in winning this game for Virginia. But I just feel strongly that Anthony Calandria is probably done as far as this season goes, and maybe as far as his effectiveness career-wise. But for this season, I just don't know that they can game plan something offensively that will win this game next week with him as the quarterback. So, hope I'm wrong. Please, this this audio will be out there. Um, I hope I'm wrong. I really do, but I don't think I am, unfortunately. So, let's switch gears and talk some basketball. And oh boy, this is going to be a fun one too. Uh, two 22-point plus losses. First time since 2008 that Virginia men's basketball team has lost two straight games by 22 points or more. That was Dave Lato's second to last season. Should have been his last season. That team went 17 and 16. Uh, and, Lato got fired the next year. Uh, did not see what we saw in the Bahamas coming. I knew that obviously, we all knew that these were going to be tough games. You were going to be playing two ranked teams, win or lose down there, starting with Tennessee, and then as it turned out, St. John's on Friday night. But Virginia played Villanova very well. I know Villanova is not Villanova of recent vintage, but it's still a school that recruits for its basketball program, Villanova level players. They're just not being put in the right places necessarily. And Virginia won that game, rather easily. I mean, it was a 10-point final score, but the working margin was 15 to 18 in the second half in that game up in Baltimore. I was there sitting on the floor for that game, and I was impressed with the Virginia approach there and the results there. And then to go from what we saw there, not just the results, but also the confidence that team played with to what we saw now was not in the Bahamas, unfortunately for me. But from what we saw on TV, the confidence that we saw in the Villanova game was not there. From the opening tip of the Tennessee game all the way through, that team played like deer in headlights. And that's what shocked me the most. There's a lot of talent on this team. I got people who disagree with me on that. Whatever. I'm going to stick to that until I'm, probably the end of the season, no matter what happens. But um, the results were what we saw from last year's team: 42 points in the Tennessee loss and 55 in the St. John's loss. And you know what? Okay, so among the things that stand out, I'm the numbers guy. I just went into details about how far passes went downfield in the football part of this podcast. All right, so um, before in the first three games of the season, this Virginia team was shooting 44.6% from three. That ranked in the top 10 nationally. Uh, 3-point shooting's going to come and go, and it went this in the two games, 15 of 48, 32.2%. That's more like last year. Team averaged 35.8% last year from three. Um, and but okay, so your 3-point shooting will come and go, and that's the case with everybody. You're not going to shoot 60% from the 3-point line every game, no matter what team you are. You're going to get hot, you're going to get cold. It's just the way it's going to be. Um, what really stood out was okay, there was all the talk in the offseason about changing the offense because, the mover blocker offense, the sides offense, continuity flow, all the, different things that all played in the same thing was stale. And it was obviously stale. It's been stale for a few years, but obviously stale after what we saw last year. And among the reasons, the Tony Bennett style of play inherited from his dad, Dick Bennett. There's not a lot of post-ups, if there's even any post-ups in that offense, but if there's any, there's a few per game. You don't get to the rim very much. You shoot a lot of mid-range shots, and so that's analytically that's the wrong way to play basketball. I mean, with the NBA is the NBA numbers people have shown us the best shots are threes, even better shots than dunks are because I mean you shoot a percentage if you shoot two of three from three, you're shooting 150%. You make three dunks, you're shooting 100%. So I mean, it's just you shoot one of three from three, you're shooting 50%. You make one layup and miss one layup, you're shooting 50%. I mean, it just the analytics value threes. Then second, they value shots at the rim. You're going to shoot a decently high percentage. There's going to be contests at the rim, so you're not going to you'll shoot in the 60s at the rim. But then the th third and almost discouraged to shoot shots are those mid-range jumpers, pulling up from even, 8 or 10 feet because you're contested and you're going to shoot a lower percentage. Most teams shoot in a low mid 30s. Even the good teams, upper 30s, low 40s on those shots. So shoot threes, shoot at the rim, and then if you have to, only if you have to shoot those mid-range jumpers. Well, I looked at the numbers from last year, and Virginia last year averaged 19.1 shots at the rim per game. And that ranked, where did I have that? 337th among the 362 teams in um, Division One last season. So 19.1 was the average at shots at the rim. That's, layups, dunks, that's, driving to the basket, that's follow dunks, follow tip-ins, whatever else. 19.1. So ranking 337th tells you that 19.1 is a low number. In the games against um, St. John's and Tennessee this week. Let's see, what were the numbers here? In the loss to UT, 4 of 9 at the rim, so less than half of the 19.1, which was already low from last season. And then in the St. John's game, I'm looking here, 4 of 7, way less than half of the number we saw from last season, which was a low number of shots at the rim. So, okay, so last year, 19.1 shots per game at the rim, low, didn't even get to that number combined in 2 games against Tennessee and St. John's, so very low. All right, well, what about then mid-range shots? What about those mid-range shots? What should we be shooting there? Well, last year Virginia shot 11.1 mid-range jumpers per game. These numbers, by the way, are from Synergy Sports. It's a great analytics database for the NBA, for the NCAA. So 11.1. Keep that number in mind. That ranked 30th in the nation. So that suggests to you that's a high number. 11.1 mid-range jumpers ranks 30th high number. In the Tennessee loss, 6 of 20. Excuse me. 4 of 20. Worse. 4 of 20 on mid-range jumpers. So 11.1 is bad. Virginia in the Tennessee game shot almost double that. Only made 4. Even in the St. John's game, 5 of 10 in the mid range. That's still right around that 11.1 number from last season, which is high. You made 5, okay, so that's great, but that's still too many mid range shots. So yeah, the 3-point numbers again, they're going to come and go. You're going to be 15 of 48 in a 2-game stretch at points, but if you're fighting your way to the rim, you're going to, most Virginia, even in these 2 games, 8 of 16 combined at the rims. That's 50%, right? And, you know, Virginia itself last year and most teams shoot in the upper 50s, low to mid 60s at the rim. They're higher percentage shots. So get more of those shots, work your way into getting more of those shots. Um, and then if you're going to get fouled more on those shots. Virginia the last few years with fewer shots at the rim and more mid-range jumpers, and then of course the three-pointers. You don't often get fouled shooting threes. We saw Isaac McNeely get fouled shooting a three at the end of the first half of the St. John's game, but it's rare. I think he got fouled also shooting a three and making a three at the Villanova game last week. Again, though it's rare, um, but you're going to get fouled more going to the rim. And also when you are effective going to the rim, you're going to get more help defense under the basket, which may allow you to kick it out to an open three-point shooter. That's the open three-point shooter is the best three-point shooter, especially the inside-outside pass. Because you're catching the ball moving towards the basket. Yeah, your balance is much better. Your fluidity is going to be a lot better. Your mechanics are going to be better. So, though being effective at the rim can make you more effective at the three-point line too. Uh, games last week, not enough shots at the rim, too many mid-range jumpers. Just what it is. And then another factor that was obvious, I'm sure, for those who watched the games, and if you could make it, I mean, I had to, this is my job. I got to watch all 80 minutes of two games, all 40 minutes of any game, plus whatever overtime there might be. Turnovers were a huge issue. 18 in a loss to Tennessee, 16 in a loss to St. John's. For reference, last year, Tony Bennett's last team averaged 8.1 turnovers per game. That was the fewest in the nation. Tony's team's always valuing the ball so well. Um, and those games had a similar number of possessions as Tony games did last year. When your turnover percentage is higher than your shooting percentage, this it's just not going to work. It's just not going to work. So the what I'm trying to say from a standpoint of okay, the team is 3-2, and things are what they are. Uh, Going forward, yes, note that this is still a new team. Three of the starters are transfers. Two of the other key rotation guys are freshmen. Even the guys who are being asked, who are back, are being asked to play a new way. It worked against Villanova, but Villanova is not that good defensively. Ken Palm ranks Villanova 95th in the country. Tennessee's ranked first, and St. John's is ranked 15th. Um, it stood out to me that Tennessee and St. John's were a lot more physical in the two games. Tennessee had 8 steals and 7 block shots against Virginia, and a +9 advantage on the boards. St. John's also actually a +8 advantage on the boards. 13 steals and 3 blocks. So, I mean, those, 15 steals, combined steals and blocks for Tennessee, 16 combined steals and blocks for St. John's. Virginia looks soft. I was noting this when I was chatting with fellow sports folks in the press box yesterday at the football game. That it looks like the Virginia kids are still scrimmaging. That they're still figuring out where to be defensively, where to be in transition, what their roles are on offense, and they're running the plays. But it's almost like they're still waiting for somebody to blow the whistle and let them do it again because they don't know where they are. They don't know where they're supposed to be. Um, and you really saw that in the St. John's game. The numbers there, 10 of 24 from three for St. John's, 13 of 17 at the rim. Now that number, the 17 is still low, in part, there's a low number there for St. John's in terms of attempts, just because the number of possessions in that game were so low. 13, and then 6 of them were dunks, and 3 of them were alley-oop dunks on fast breaks. I honestly don't remember an alley-oop on a fast break anytime in the last few seasons. I'm obviously going to be, somebody's going to send me a clip of something and say, you missed this one. But I don't remember alley-oops on dunks in the last few years under Tony. He had 3 in the first half against St. John's. I don't know what that is except for not knowing where to be. Um, this is all something that can be fixed, obviously, but that's going to take game reps, and the game reps you're running out of those already. What we call guarantee games, games against, smaller conference foes that you should beat. There's only 4 of those left on the schedule. 3-2 Virginia. There's going to be 30 regular season games. You've only got 4 tune-up type games left this season. Um, 2 of those are next week, so that's fine. But the non-conference schedule that Tony left behind was challenging. You still got Florida and Memphis. Then you got the ACC starts on December 7th with the first game, and then there's games later in the month in the ACC. But you go to SMU on December 7th. There's just not a lot of time, not a lot of margin for error. KenPom.com right now, which Virginia fans have known to love, grown to love over the last decade plus, whatever. KenPom.com has us at 15 and 16 right now. That is not going to get the job done for Ron Sanchez. He doesn't have a lot of time to figure this out, and that's this is hard because the football program's in a similar place. Tony Elliott at the end of year 3, he's got 3 years left on his deal. Um, the buyout is all of his money. The situation with basketball is not the same. Ron Sanchez is the interim head coach. Uh, so if Virginia decides to cut bait, they can do so very easily. It won't cost nearly as much, to say the least. It won't cost anything with anybody but Sanchez, and what his buyout would be. I'm just doing the math in my head because I know what he gets paid, and he's guaranteed through 2027. So I guess he'll obviously be getting paid this year. It's only like it's less than $1 million when I do the math in my head. It's like maybe $950,000 would be his buyout if he's not retained at the end of the season. So I mean, there's nothing there. You can easily make the move there. We don't want this to be the case, though. A lot of us don't because Ron Sanchez is the link to the Tony Bennett era, and we want Ron to succeed. I just don't know he's going to have the chance to. This team is 3-2. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe he doesn't deserve the chance to. I'm whispering that almost, stage whispering it because I don't know that this team's 3-2 with 220 plus point losses if Tony Bennett's the coach. Um, and this is tough. I mean, it's a young team. As I mentioned just a few minutes ago, and then this young team, uh, three freshmen and three sophomores in the rotation, just one senior, and that's Tane Murray, who got just really basic rotation minutes in the two games. Whereas St. John's on Friday night, two grad students, a senior, three juniors. Tennessee, two grad students, four seniors, and a junior. I mean, those teams are older than some NBA teams that are out there. Let's just be honest about that. Um, but the thing is, this UVA group is not going to get any older. They are what they are. You're not going to go to the waiver wire. You're not going to make a trade. You're not going to pick up a free agent buyouts or anything like that. This is what you got. Um, and Sanchez left it at, the reaction to this is going to be determined. We'll see Tuesday night, basically. Manhattan coming to town. Friday night, there's a game. I don't have the opponent committed to memory, but I mean, it's these next two games, you'll be watching more for the final score and game flow. They better be wins, right? They better be 5-2 after Friday night, but you'll be watching to see. And then you'll be watching that. I'll be watching that too because when we're watching the game, I'm not analyzing shots. I mean, a little bit, but not you're not analyzing shots at the rim, mid-range jumpers, etc. You're watching game flow. You're watching what you're watching. After the games, I'll be looking at all the inside numbers. But so during the game, watch game flow, watch game control, and then after, check back with me, and we'll talk about the analytics of things. But we're going to want to see more shots at the rim, more attempts to get to the rim. Uh, that was going to make your threes better. Don't shoot, don't shoot mid-range jumpers. Uh, we just don't shoot them. Um, obviously, you have to shoot them, but put put verboten on that, right? So, any case, yeah, these next two games are going to be key just for that. I mean, hopefully, there's a 5-2 record at the end of these two, but is it a 5-2 with a couple of narrow wins over teams that you should probably be beating by more than that? Is it going to be 5-2 with some what am I going to call it, like saccharin to it, where it's artificially sweet? There were some games like that last year where you played opponents that were so overmatched that it wasn't even helpful. The game reps weren't even helpful. You want these game reps to be helpful. You want to see some improvement from this team, and then the following week is so you got the two guarantee games this week. Next week is Florida and SMU, and yeah, ratchets back up. So okay, um, so if you went through all this with me, I am sorry. We're all in the same boat. This is like a therapy session, probably for us all, because our teams are not doing very well right now. But all right, if you have any questions for me, any tips, you just want to vent, that's fine because I like to vent as well. Send me an email at chris@augustafreepress.com. And again, okay, so Tuesday night, Manhattan, I'll get you ready for that tomorrow. Monday, as I'm recording this on Sunday, get you ready tomorrow, Monday for Manhattan. We'll start getting you ready for Virginia Tech on Saturday. We'll look ahead to Friday's basketball game, and there's a lot else going on. We'll keep up with the who's in the NBA. That's always a fun thing to do with some guys doing really well. Ty Jerome and Jay Huff having really good seasons so far. So again, Chris at AugustaFreePress.com, and I look forward to talking to you all again very soon.